Welcome back to the deep dive. We are here to give you that ultimate shortcut to being well-informed. We dig into the sources so you don't have to.
Yep, and today we're looking at the mechanics behind real success.
We are strapping in for I think, a really detailed case study in craft production, specifically how one brand managed to rise above all the noise, not through hype, but by, rigorously defining a technical standard.
We are talking about Puffin Solventless.
We are.
And look, this isn't just a brand review. It's more like an anatomy of integrity. We went through all the sources on the journey of Puffin Solventless, sounded by Josh Aird back in 2019.
Right there in the San Fernando Valley, the 818.
The 818, yeah. And our sources trace this whole thing from the very beginning, from like operating in tight rooms and passing these early test jars, hand to hand.
Just within those local discerning circles.
Exactly. To now, where they've actually established what many people in the industry call the solventless standard.
And I think no matter what industry you work in, the lesson here is pretty universal. It's about setting a non-negotiable benchmark for quality.
For sure.
So for you listening, the core question we really want to answer today is this. What specific, non-negotiable technical standards, the steps you absolutely can't skip, what does it take to create genuine, recognizable consistency in a premium product?
And maybe more importantly, how do you turn that consistency into market trust?
Let's unpack the blueprint.
Okay, so we have to start with the founder's reputation. I mean, that's where it all begins.
Right.
Because the brand's strength, it wasn't born out of some clever marketing campaign. It was born out of pure mechanical expertise. Josh Aird was already a known guy.
A known figure in the Southern California hash community, yeah.
Yeah.
For his technique, long before the brand even launched.
And that distinction is just so crucial.
It is. He wasn't some celebrity trying to launch a product line.
Okay.
He was a technical expert launching a standard. The sources consistently describe him as a washer before a marketer. The skill came first.
Absolutely. And you can see that reputation generating peer-to-peer discussion. We found evidence of other professional hash makers on these super specialized forums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were citing his precise approach years before Puffin even existed as a brand. He was basically teaching while he was creating.
Teaching what, specifically?
Well, particularly the really tricky stuff, like how to combine micron sizes to maximize quality, and most critically, how to preserve the maximum terpene weight through the whole wash and drying process.
That's what sets an expert apart.
It is.
So, okay, his community reputation was kind of his initial seed capital. But that commitment, it has to start with the raw material itself.
Of course.
So what were those non-negotiable standards for the material that went into the wash, the stuff that really determines the final potential?
The sourcing was.
Yeah.
It was incredibly strict, unwavering. First, it was always fresh frozen.
Non-negotiable.
Totally non-negotiable. Because if that material isn't flash frozen right after harvest, all those volatile compounds, the terpenes that give it the flavor and aroma,
they just start to degrade.
Instantly. Yeah, due to enzymatic breakdown. If they used dried material, they would never, ever get the kind of high-impact flavor profiles the brand is famous for now.
That makes perfect sense. Fresh frozen is the only way to lock in that peak potential.
Exactly. And second, it was always indoor-only material.
For control.
For total control. It ensures consistency over the growing environment, light cycles, nutrients, pest management, all things that are almost impossible to standardize with outdoor or, mixed source material.
And third? Small batches.
Always small batches. This isn't mass production. It's entirely artisanal.
And that small batch detail, that's where the financial tension usually shows up.
Oh, absolutely.
As soon as a brand gets any traction, the pressure to scale up, cut costs, it starts immediately.
And that's what makes Puffin's adherence to this so remarkable. They chose integrity over, immediate volume.
Which brings us directly into the washroom. The Puffin process itself.
Right.
If we were to break it down, what were the strict parameters that became their quality calling card?
Okay, so let's start with the wash itself, because this is probably the clearest example of them prioritizing purity over yield.
They focus exclusively on the first wash.
The first wash. And for listeners who might not be familiar, most operations, they do multiple washes to maximize their total yield.
A first, a second, sometimes even a third.
But by limiting themselves only to that first wash, they are ensuring they collect just the most pristine, mature, and uncontaminated trichome heads.
Okay, but wait. Isn't that a terrible business model for stealing? I mean, they're intentionally leaving profit on the table. They're discarding second and third wash material that's often perfectly marketable.
It's justified by consistency,
Mm-hmm.
by brand trust. They basically bet that a smaller volume of a flawless product would build a reputation that no marketing budget could ever buy.
So the end user never gets any of that degraded resin that might sneak into later runs.
Never. And that consistency is what allows them to charge a premium and, sustain the business.
That's fascinating. It's a quality-first financial model. But what was the second crucial parameter, the technical spec of the screens?
Precisely. They used a very specific micron range. They focused on the quality sweet spot between 70U and 149U.
And micron size, just to be clear, that refers to the size of the mesh screen used to filter everything.
Right, to filter the water and collect the resin glands. And it is absolutely vital.
So why is that specific range, 70 to 149, why is that considered the sweet spot for premium hash?
Well, if you go below 70U, you start getting all this fine particulate matter like broken plant stock, cell debris.
But the stuff that contaminates it and causes those burn notes that reviewers hate?
Exactly. But on the other hand, if you go above 149U, you start capturing immature resin heads that haven't developed their full profile yet.
Got it.
So Puffin's adherence to that 70 to 149 window, it just guarantees they only capture the fully mature, clean resin heads.
Okay, purity lockdown. Now, the final stage, the press. You mentioned they sometimes use high-temp presses at 210 degrees plus. That sounds completely counterintuitive to everything we hear about preserving terpenes. So what's the rationale there?
This is where their deep, deep technical knowledge really shines. I mean, conventional wisdom absolutely screams for low pressing temperatures.
Like 160, 180 degrees.
Right, because terpenes are fragile, they evaporate with high heat. However, some specific genetic profiles, especially those high in THCA, they have a very stiff, almost crystalline structure when they're cold cured.
So if they press those strains at low temps, the rosin would come out all crumbly and unstable?
Exactly. It would look visually unappealing. The cure would be difficult to stabilize.
Yeah.
So by momentarily applying that controlled higher heat, that 210 plus,
They're just adjusting the viscosity.
just enough to get a uniform, creamy final consistency, a clean cure. And they do it without significantly degrading the high boiling point terpenes that characterize those strains.
So they adapt the process to the material instead of forcing the material into one single process.
That's it. And that ability to break the rules but do it responsibly based on chemistry, that's the hallmark of true expertise.
And this consistency is what built that early buzz. It's
Yeah.
what moved names like Cap Junky, Dulce de Uva, Papaya,
GMO, terpenes.
from those tight valley circles into, mainstream LA deliveries.
Those strains were the proof. They were the evidence of the process. And, while pressed rosin is their identity, we should note they did expand their product breadth.
To make it more accessible.
Yeah, they included things like solventless gummies and rosin disposables, but the quality always flows from that core, meticulously managed solventless material.
Okay, so the product standard is set in stone.
Right.
Yeah. But how do you actually sell something this niche in a landscape where consumer trust is, constantly eroding?
This is where we need to look at their community strategy.
Right.
They understood that technical quality, it needs external visibility. But they just refused to chase hype.
So what did they do?
They built their brand right into the craft ecosystem itself. The aesthetic was a starting point. That smoking Puffin logo is described as bright and playful.
Which was a big contrast to the hyper-masculine black jar aesthetic that was dominating the market at the time.
Yeah, their look signaled transparency, approachability. It was almost like an anti-mystery signal.
But they went deeper than just aesthetics, right? They integrated with the heady glass ecosystem.
This was a genius strategic move. They cemented their credibility by collaborating with these high-end accessory makers like Toro Slurpers and Bloodshed PDF.
And they ran community Moodmats runs.
Yeah, and for listeners who might not be in this world, a Toro Slurper is a specialized, very high-end quartz dab rig accessory. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars for the glass alone.
So by associating with those luxury tools, they were signaling that Puffin's material was intended for the most discerning consumer.
The one who's willing to pay top dollar for the best experience.
It's a halo effect of credibility.
It is. It linked them directly to a culture where quality and craft respect matter more than, some momentary online clout.
But the most critical element of their trust strategy was how they handled the digital chaos of the time. The no tele, no tricks rule.
The landscape was so volatile then, Instagram pages were constantly getting deleted. Anonymous Telegram channels were popping up everywhere, driving all these scams.
It was the Wild West.
And Puffin was operating under immense pressure. In response, Josh Aird, the founder, he just doubled down on radical clarity.
They only maintained 2 official pages.
2 pages. They had no public Telegram channel, which was a huge avenue for illicit sales. And they explicitly stated over and over they had nothing for sale on Instagram.
That is just remarkable self-restraint. I mean, they eliminated quick, anonymous, high-volume sales. They forced their growth to rely solely on word of mouth.
The growth was driven purely by trust, not noise. Followers knew that if Puffin posted it, it was legitimate. They never compromised that boundary for a quick buck.
And they took it offline, too.
They did. They reinforced this trust through physical connection. Think about the community events they hosted, like Puffin's Putt Off at popular LA lounges.
Turning the brand into a physical gathering point, not just some anonymous vendor.
It transformed the brand into a place where hash heads, glass collectors, and Valley regulars all cross paths. They proved the people behind the brand were real. They were accessible.
And that's how you combat digital fragmentation. You build a real community.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the culmination of all this work. How did the market, the independent reviewers, how did they ultimately confirm that this dedication to process actually paid off?
The feedback was definitive. It directly validated their whole small batch, process-oriented approach. Reviews across LA praised the material's consistency above everything else.
They didn't just say it was good, they cited specifics.
Right, they cited technical outcomes,
Yeah.
a heavy terp punch, a clean cure, and crucially, no burn notes.
And that no burned notes detail. That's the direct evidence. That's the proof that the technical process, the first wash, the micron collection, the temperature control, was all executed flawlessly.
It translated directly into a superior customer experience. It was stable, it was clean, potent. The highest praise came from the professional channels.
Head shops were calling the material magical.
Magical. And hash reviewers specifically noted that the strains literally jumped out of the jar, which confirms that successful preservation of those volatile terpenes we talked about.
So what does this all mean when we put the sources together? The core thesis holds up. Puffin built its standard batch by batch. They sacrificed short-term yield for long-term reputation.
That's the entire synthesis. The brand scaled sustainably by staying small batch, highly transparent, and absolutely rooted in the process. The sources explicitly note there were no mystery growers.
And that the founder was someone who lives in the work.
He lives in the work. And the relevance for you listening is that true market standard setting doesn't come from aggressive marketing or quick hacks. It comes from relentless, disciplined adherence to a defined, high-level technical process.
Process adherence is the market differentiation.
That's it.
It's this powerful combination of scientific detail, the precise microns, the adaptive temperatures, and a trust-based community strategy that eliminates the need for all that expensive marketing overhead.
It's a blueprint. Integrity leading directly to reputation and then to profit.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with.
If a brand can achieve this level of micro-level dedication and batch-by-batch integrity, even in a fragmented and fast-growing market, the question isn't just about transparency. It's whether this level of quality is fundamentally incompatible with the demands of, say, institutional-level scaling.
Right. If big investment capital comes in and demands explosive growth and high yield, what happens to the integrity of the first wash?
What does that trade-off between scaling and dedication really mean for the future of any craft industry?
Something for you to explore on your own.
Indeed.
Well,
until next time.